Research is all about seeing things from different angles, different perspectives. That's what helps you understand more. In this video, I'll just give you some brief thoughts and ideas around perspective.
The GERA Foundation presents this series called Navigating Research.
So sexy it hurts.
Cause I don't look good naked anymore. No, I don't look good naked anymore.
Yeah, perspective, even as it relates to how you see yourself, depending on the mood you're in for that matter, will determine what part of the scale you fit on. The first video that we saw or the second video. Now, I tend towards the second, probably because I'm a bit more modest than that. But the upshot of the story is somewhere you'll be in that range, maybe even outside of either of them. I have no idea. But the point is, that is what perspective is. How do you see yourself? And research is the same way. How do we see a problem? And we could see it in a whole myriad of different ways. Absolutely. And every one of them is not unreasonable. Okay? Not unreasonable. That is perspective. That is what we're talking about. Sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees. Ain't that the truth? This is central Alberta. That's where I'm staying. And I'm standing here at the edge of a little bit of bush, as you can see. If you thought of each one of these trees as one of your interesting objects that you found in the sky, you could imagine that if you're so fixated on one of them, rather than the bigger picture, all you're going to understand is that one thing. And that's how science works. We spend our life, we say we're PhDs, we say that we have a philosophy, whatever. You could start from the very big, go to the very small, or go from the very small to the very big. It depends on how your research goes. It depends on what your supervisor gives you direction to. It depends on what you decide to do. But basically, every one of these trees would represent something interesting. And you would study them, but you wouldn't understand the bigger picture unless you got a more broader view. So let's get a broader view. And here we're up from a different perspective, and we can see the forest, but we have difficulty seeing the individual trees. Fortunately, it's winter, so you can see trees, you can see objects, but the reality is you're looking at a bigger overview, and that is the whole point of perspective. Here we're seeing the bigger picture, and that's really cool. So we're in amongst the trees, we're studying our objects, we're at the very specific, and here we're at the very wide view. We're looking at the galaxy and wondering what star formation is. But sometimes, just sometimes, the easiest way to do research is to stand in one place. Is to stand in one place and just look, just stare, and maybe you'll see something interesting. I want it. Come on, girl. Come on. Come on over. Hello, Porky. Don't run away. So, and that's the beauty sometimes of choosing a strategy where you just look, you just stare for long periods of time, and you find something really cool and interesting, like a moose or a porcupine. And if as it relates to perspective, of course, right? You know, you only have one image. You're just looking at one part of the sky, one piece. You just stare at it for very long term, and you find something. And that's kind of what monitoring is. You get lucky, and you find that moose, because I can assure you, I stare out that window, and most days I see zero. I see trees, I see a forest, I see some hills. But the point is, every now and then you get lucky, and if your camera's nearby and you can turn it on and take a shot, that's what it's all about. Astronomy is the same way. How do we catch accretion bursts of star forming regions when matter falls onto the surface of the star and there's a huge burst of energy? We do that by long-term monitoring. So our perspective is we look at a single object for a very long period of time. Okay? Whereas we can look at thousands of objects for a very short period of time and find a whole bunch of statistics on how many of them actually had an accretion event. And that would be two different ways to do the same kind of science. One is much more specific than the other, but it's all about perspective. So how you set up your programs is related to that. And that's perspective. You get lucky. Astronomy really is 99% boredom, 1% excitement. And I'm talking about when you find something really cool in amongst the dry and dull data that you're processing. The part of doing the astronomy, the observing and the data processing, that's cool too. But I'm talking about the actual thrill of finding something really cool. Perspective really is about trying to find ways to look at a problem from different angles, whether high up in the sky or in amongst the trees or staring out a window, I don't care what, but you're looking for different ways to solve a problem, a given problem. Now, this is my favorite example of this, the fork versus chopsticks, the Western world versus the Eastern world. And the problem clearly is, the common problem that they were designed to solve was eating food without our hands. For various reasons, that was deemed necessary. Some places do different things. Anyways, these two cultures developed these solutions totally independent of each other for various reasons. I don't fully understand myself, to be honest. But they never came into contact with each other. They had very minor contact probably, but they grew these two cultures completely separate from one another. Didn't get very close. In fact, I always talk about the Romans, the Chinese knew about the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire knew about the Chinese, or they heard about them, but they never met. And the Chinese sent delegations to try to meet the Romans. They got as far as Parthia, but the Parthians hated the Romans, as you do, because the Romans were nasty. And they never told them where to go. So they went home. Anyways, but the bottom line is, here is a perfect example of two separate solutions, two very useful, very reasonable solutions for the same problem. And that's what perspective gives you.
In your case, it's true. In everybody else's case, it ain't so true.
Research is really about this idea of perspective. How I look at a problem from one angle to the other. The forest for the trees. The fork versus chopsticks. And these are simple examples. How you feel about yourself. How you think you are, this or that. Really attractive, really ugly. Whatever you think in your head. It's all about perspective. And research is absolutely no different. But how do we improve it? How do we increase our perspective? And how do we do that? Well, I have a couple ways, and I'll give those to you. The first is, I call it DOTI in another video, and it stands for diversity of thought and imagination. So, of course, imagination is very important as it relates to perspective. And if you have it in spades, boy, you're living good. If you don't have it in spades, well, I know some drugs that you might want to take. But no, I'm joking. Don't do the drugs. Don't do drugs. But anyways, but the first part of that diversity of thought really is going and working with researchers all over the world in cultures who see problems from a different angle. How they count. I think I've always said to this people, I can count to 5 several different ways on my hand. I can start with my pinky, closed fist, start with my pinky. I can start with my closed fist, then my thumb. Or I can do it open and then close with my pinky, and so on. That is diversity of thought. I have different cultures produces different ways to solve the same problem, counting to 5, eating with a fork or chopsticks. Okay, so go around the world, work with researchers. Do not stay at the same university you got your BSc from, and then your master's and PhD from, and now you're doing your postdoc there. There may be some great scientists there, but you're not getting full value for what you could probably do. And so in other words, see the world, work with researchers all over the world. That's the first thing I would say. The second is research isn't just about me looking at a single dish telescope. Do VLBI, do interferometry, which is VLBI of course, do infrared, do optical, do different wavelengths. So not only are you talking to different people, you're doing different wavelengths, and then you're thinking about long-term monitoring, and you're looking at multiple objects, so you're trying to look at the forest and the trees, and you're looking at it from different angles all the time. And in the end, it'll make you a better astronomer, I'll tell you right now, it just will. But the second thing it'll do for you, it'll give you a different perspective of yourself. You may choose to think you look a little better than you thought you looked, or a little worse than you thought you looked, but it'll make you honest. It'll just make you honest. You'll wake up and you go, yeah, okay. And that is what perspective gives us. But as it relates to your career, go talk to and work with lots of researchers all over the world, different cultures, and use different wavelengths, use different telescopes. Those are the two things I'd give you. But, you know, when you're looking in that mirror, that is your perspective. And try to keep that in mind every time you do your research, or every time you breathe for that matter. Enjoy it. Find the 1%. And you'll do that with more perspective.
The GERA Foundation will produce more videos like this. Please like, share, or subscribe if you enjoyed this video.